What's that? You don't even know that was
Lord time, Lord time. Bro, I knew
atomic
it.
lizards and cellular infections. Could there possibly be a better combination? What's that? You don't even know that was possible? Well, neither did I, but we're gonna learn today. In the events of Godzilla -1, we're taking it back, way back.
That's him? Oh, that's scary.
Back to the original formula of Godzilla, when it wasn't all high-fiving and like Godzuki, because the sweet lord was that era. Residing deep under the ocean, under the crushing pressures of the water, a gigantic lizard would reside that, once being exposed to the horrific radiation at Bikini Atoll blasts, would...
Harry, let me get some water, because I'm dead ass dehydrated. I need like... Oh, got some water right here. Never mind. Never mind. I got half a bottle. We good. Alright, never mind.
Begin altering and changing to not only obtain power of regeneration, but also would have the ability to fire a heat ray out of its face. But more alarmingly, appears to be a type of infection associated with it that can be passed along to humans that are exposed. So today,
-1's comparably small to other Godzillas, but he's so much cooler. Does he have like just way more hacks? He has like better hacks, more skills, better showcase. Like, is that why he appeals much more cooler?
This episode, let's discuss the mutations
He looked crazy, I ain't gonna lie.
Induced by the radiation Godzilla was exposed to, and how the cellular infection may spread. But before getting there, I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you would leave a like, that lets me know that you enjoy this content, and subscribe is a great way to stay up to date on when I post. I'm officially posting videos or playthroughs, whatever, over at Roanoke Games again. But if you would like to make a suggestion for that channel, or even this channel, check out the Discord, links in the description. But first, this episode is sponsored by Factor.
Get your money, bro. Get your money, bro.
We can do. I don't make the rules here, I just enforce them. As a plane lands, it's carrying something big. Also, horrible landing area. It's 1945 and the Odo Island airfield is active during the final days of World War II. The lead mechanic talks to the pilot about how he was able to land such a badly damaged plane, literally calling it a bucket of bolts. However, they looked over the plane and cannot find anything wrong with it, basically implying that he's just a coward. Of course, the real question is, why did he talk about how damaged the plane was if he said
he has legit arms, he can run, he can jump, he can repair limbs, basically unkillable, and his radiation beam is just as strong as legendary Godzilla? Oh, he sound like a problem. What the hell? He sound like a freaking problem. Can you answer my call? Yeah.
Saying now it's totally fine. As then he looks down into the water, he then spots there's some weird things floating up, also known as deep sea fish. As the sirens go off overhead, they say something big is heading towards them. Who could it be? They then light up the beach and see somehow Godzilla snuck up on all of them and then just starts going absolutely ham. Although it should be noted that this is his pre-mutation form, so he's just known as Zilla, which let's discuss this form as it highlights the changes that we will see. Godzilla's pre-mutation.
Also, I'm gonna end stream after this. I'll end stream after this, but I will probably most likely still be playing the game with Slippy if they're still on. But this will be the closer. This will be the closer for the stream, and I am fine with that. We did a lot today. I'm glad we got through most of the stuff today. Much love, for sure, for sure. We're gonna finish this for sure though. This is gonna be the last thing we do before we end up stream.
Form is known as Godzillasaurus and is actually supposed to be a naturally occurring species, which if you didn't know, dinosaurs back in the day, the reason they can violate the square cube law is because they had hollow bones. Relegated to the deep sea, the reason for its size is based on the known 3 rules we have for deep sea gigantism, which given Godzilla, or at least he's known in this form as Zilla, are the Kleber's rule, Berman's rule, and Island rule. Kleber's rule states that the bigger the animal is, the more efficient it tends to be, sort of like why elephants live roughly 60 to 70 years and a shrew lives about 2 years. The efficiency of the metabolism and it also being slower allows for life to progress a little slower, because if you're not aware, there's something known as the Hayflick limit, and this indicates that roughly 52 times is the allotted amount for your cells to divide, and then after that, cellular division halts. Well, at least in humans, but amongst other animals, it's more or less just going to run along the same lines. The faster the metabolism, the faster the cell divides, and the quicker this limit is reached, then the animal just kind of flatlines out faster than normal. Well, normal for us, not normal for them. They just flatline out because it's quicker. Anyhow, the second point, being Berman's rule, says that animals living in cold environments tend to be quite large. Cells will actually grow in size, and with oxygen levels at the deep sea rather high, this helps facilitate this growth. Accompanying this, larger cells will have slower metabolisms, causing longer lifespans. And the third rule is the island rule, which indicates that animals living separated from other organisms will grow to large sizes on isolated islands. This is because of the limited resources and how there is just low predation. Along with this, while you may not think of deep sea life being associated with an island, it is quite barren down there. It's actually kind of a wasteland, which is just filled with giant crabs and anglerfish, and not a place you
The fact this is a real thing too though, that's freaking interesting, man. I never want to explore the ocean. I never want to. I never will. But for the people that have explored the 5% of the ocean, man, I don't. It must be.
Want to be. With Zilla, all of these come together to create a roughly 49.2 feet tall creature, in the Lord's units of course, or in heathen measurements, roughly about 15 meters. The beast that storms the beach, at first though, does not really appear aggressive, giving us a good look at it. Standing on digitigrade structured legs, it walks on the balls of its feet and appears to have 3 claws on each foot, at least from what I can tell. The skin looks reptilian with scales covering its body. It really would take on the appearance of a Tyrannosaurus Rex in some respects, however the arms are much more useful. The tail is absolutely massive and the spines that come out of its back are jagged, but more likely going to help it propel itself through the water and help it change direction quickly while swimming. It walks in a hunched over appearance and its head is more slumped forward, indicating that while it is bipedal, due to the hunch on its back, the connection point on the skull is likely at the back of the head as opposed to underneath the head. This would in some capacity limit the intelligence, but still it is quite smart. We can see this as it does not actually attack until provoked. Instead, it seems kind of interested in what humanity is doing on the island rather than interested in just eating. However, this brings up a really important point. In Godzilla vs. King Kong, we all saw that axe hit Godzilla's head. You know that axe that took out like Godzilla's ancestors, with like King Kong's ancestors were actively fighting with axes made out of Godzilla's spinal growths that absolutely bodied Godzilla's family. So stop playing with me. They both get blasted backwards after that hit. Sure they do.
Damn, so King Kong using weapons? I mean, that nigga Godzilla's a living weapon, so I guess, yeah.
Godzilla fans always like to leave out that little bit of the interaction while talking about who won the fight. Us Kong enjoyers, we know what's up. Anyhow, retreating to a trench to kind of hide from that thing, they devise a plan to hit it with the 20mm guns. Sending the pilot out, since he shouldn't be alive anyways, given he's a kamikaze pilot, absolutely not, no thanks. He instead freezes up and he can't take the shot as he's sitting there crapping his pants. Granted, I would be too. It should be noted here though that this, again, is the pre-mutation stage. The rounds on this plane would have absolutely dropped this thing and it would have not have healed like it does later. Completely panicking, everyone then starts opening up on it and it does absolutely nothing. Advancing in the other direction, one guy gets thrown like you wouldn't believe and a few others get crushed. Of course, again, this would have been the perfect time to eat somebody, but instead Godzilla just yeets them into oblivion. Because it sort of highlights that even while he's a giant lizard, Zilla still possesses a sort of intelligence, given he was actually friendly with the Odo Islanders, except the Japanese are another story after angering him. As this continues, the mechanic goes straight up catatonic while the pilot freaks out and runs for it after his plane gets thrown. Waking up the next morning, all the meat suits are lined up. I'm pretty sure being crushed by that thing would have definitely yielded more damage than this, like straight up pancake status. As the pilot approaches, he gets yelled at by the mechanic, all because he wouldn't follow the damn lizard, CJ. Well, you see, the weight in his pants made that quite impossible. Meanwhile, on a boat carrying a ton of POWs from Japan, a soldier then hands Shikishima a folded up piece of paper. Looking at it, I have no idea what it is. It is now December 1945. Shikishima returns home to find everything is burnt from something that, I mean, it wasn't the nukes, but it's Tokyo. There was a lot of firebombing going over there, so it was around like 3 years at this point, so I reckon it probably would look like this. As he returns back home, because he came back alive as a kamikaze pilot, this random old woman appears to be quite pissed at him. Yeah, that's a horrific turn of events. She says everyone is gone as it was engulfed in flames. Later on, the pilot gets a random offspring dropped on him as one woman then runs away.
Bro, what? Wait, why? Also, how recent is this movie? Is this also around 2016, 17, 18? How recent is this movie?
To get the offspring. He then hands it back to her as she's now interested in him. He ends up asking what happened to her husband, but she doesn't really answer.
So?
She says during the air raids, the mother of this offspring then gave it to her and then disappeared. Then like the Rizzler over here says, well, you should try trading horizontal mambo for money given the circumstances. It goes over about as well as a wet fart on a first date. It is now March 1946 and Broham is still hanging out with a single mother. Man. She's got you, brother. He's now got a new job though, which should keep everything running. He's clearing sea mines left over.
Oh, 2023? I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, it would have fooled me too. I ain't gonna lie. See, I would assume that. I would assume that. Damn. 2023. Damn. That's last year. 2 years ago. I mean, my bad.
From the war. She brings up how dangerous of a job that is, you know, because she may be mildly interested.
I just watched this though a month ago. Oh, okay. Damn. Honestly, I mean, it do look recent. It just shows a little bit of aspects of just like back then too though, so it's like, I mean,
and he says, I promise, I will never die. Boarding these specifically made boats to evade mines, bro's gonna die for sure. As they discuss how the boat is wooden, this is because magnetic sea mines would totally blow up anything if it were made out of metal. So their goal is to just cut the lines and then blow it up with a rifle. Luckily this dude couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but then Shikishima can actually take pot shots and aim them given his pilot training. Later that night, as Shikishima sleeps, and it took me 5 times to say that correctly, he wakes up seeing Godzilla attacking everyone. Ah, good old-fashioned PTSD.
Yeah, Harry, you good, bro. We learned this all together, or at least I am.
Waking up to his separated room, his not girlfriend is still sleeping on the other side, and you're telling me this dude is clearing sea mines for her and this offspring, and they aren't even like together? My brother in Christ. Shikishima then seems to kind of think that he didn't return back alive for some reason, as he kind of crawls over to her and then his Mortal Kombat kicked off of her. As pictures of his
I thought he was finna start hunching. I'm about to say, yo, what is this? What is going on?
Family then fall to the ground, and then he has a nice meltdown over it. Over at the Bikini Atoll, the US is doing what the US always does and testing out our new toy. Our nuclear arsenal, that is, which activates the almonds of Godzilla while Shikishima is still clearing mines for a living. Actually, it does more than just rustle Godzilla's jimmies. At this point, the happy little accident of radiation exposure forever changes Zilla into Godzilla. Given it'll take about 2 years for him to emerge past this point, we can only assume several things have happened. First, given the size growth that we will see as well as his regeneration ability, this would require a very specific set of genes to be activated. Proto-oncogenes would likely be mutated, which in its non-mutated form actually would help cells grow and divide to make new cells and even help them stay alive. Once mutated, however, they become known as oncogenes. This typically causes cancer in animals, but it would appear from what we see, this created a sustained growth in Godzilla, more than tripling his size and weight. This would require an immense amount of nutritional uptake over those 2 years until his growth hit an equilibrium point where he would then emerge from the sea. However, we will discuss his morphological changes shortly, as well as the mutations inspired from radiation exposure. Back in Tokyo, the offspring then starts drawing pictures of their family as they make an add-on to the house because they're making enough money. Nice. He then takes a picture of her talking about his not girlfriend later, and then she outs Shikishima saying that they aren't together as his coworkers ask, "Are you a simp?" They say, "Oh no, it's a beautiful story, trust us," but you can absolutely see in their face, they're like, bro, what? So it's now March 1947, and there's still rubble everywhere. And look, I don't know, I feel like I would start cleaning up or something. Maybe that's just my type A personality, but it just seems like my OCD would get the best of me here. Shikishima then returns home to find his not girlfriend is wearing a dress. She got a job in Ginza. The neighbor is going to take care of the kid while she's at work, and consider the following: either lock her down or find another person. Like, what are you doing, Shikishima? We now get footage of US ships having been attacked by an unknown enemy, but we know who the enemy is. Over at a destroyed vessel, the men discuss if it was a giant shark or a whale. And yeah, bro, I don't think that's gonna go down that way with a whale. They think the damage isn't from a human weapon, as Shikishima says it's Godzilla. Looking into the water, the deep sea fish are now seen floating to the top. Disgusting. He tells his crew about what happened at Odo Island and says that they were not wiped out by American forces. Their ship was sent out there until another ship could be dispatched in order to engage.
The whole thing for me outside of the movies being good is he just goes, yep, it's that time to back show up. Is that time to back show up? Is that right? Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Oh. Is that time to just show back up? Oh, got you. Yeah. No, you good. I feel I be doing the same shit. I be talking too fast, bro. This nigga's dead screaming. This man Slippy is screaming. Y'all probably could hear him if I was really quiet. Like,
engage with Godzilla directly, as the American forces said, yeah, it's kind of your problem. We really can't risk an incident.
But yeah, that's really kind of how they be doing it. That's how they be making sequels and prequels and all this other shit. It's like, you know what? Let's just bring it back one more time. And then they're like, damn, this did good. Let's do it one more time. And they spam the formula. You know, that's how it goes.
The Soviets. They say that they need to stall Godzilla for time. Looking out, the phallic fish begin rising to the top of the water in droves, which is not ideal, as Shikishima then says we need to sound the alarm. And I think they can hear you, bro. Like, why sound an alarm? Just yell out to him. You're on a really small boat. The captain then calls out to the other boat as he says the monster is heading towards Tokyo once again, as then the other boat, full of people that we never really met, gets completely got. The captain at this point tries to leave, but the engine isn't working. Sort of like a classic car when you're trying to get away from a killer.
I don't like when they do that plot. That'd be making me anxious, dog. And no, honestly, fuck it. Let them keep thinking that. Yeah.
starts up when he needed to. Godzilla then starts coming straight for them as finally he gets it started and he full throttles it out of there. Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna outrun that thing. Loading up the mines, they then drop one as they manually detonate it next to him, which predictably just makes Godzilla angry. Nice. Shikishima then gets on the turret, but has a moment where he looks at his not girlfriend before he opens up, like it has no effect on Godzilla at all. Dropping the second mine, it then goes directly into his mouth, but the trigger doesn't work as it's been disconnected. Opening up with the turret, Shikishima manages to hit the mine and then blow it up. After the explosion though, Godzilla's face almost immediately heals back, but something interesting happens.
That was quick.
For the rest of the movie, a scar exists on his face, indicating that while the skin can heal ridiculously fast, the internal portions of the body may not heal as well and were only slightly affected by the radiation. So as a result of this, we can also assume something else is going on. The skin has had the proto-oncogenes heavily mutated, bordering on skin cancer, but even further past that, interestingly, the genes for regulation of growth do not appear to have been affected, meaning that the cells are still on Team Godzilla instead of Team Individual. This allows for wounds to heal through rapid mitosis, but once the body has sealed the wound, the dividing ceases through chemical mediators telling the cell to stop dividing. These chemical signals are known as specialized proteins called cyclins. These act like switches in a sense to tell cells to start dividing and then later stop when a wound is healed. Without them, you turn into a cancerous mass or you just don't heal at all, which I guess you may have guessed is probably not a great thing. Now, what should be known is this would absolutely be scorching, like releasing a ton of heat, given how much these cells were in rapid division. Given it can release a heat ray though, the cells appear to be able to withstand heat to a certain degree. And this would almost place each individual cell in the extremophile category.
I love these videos. It does in-depth scientifically and it helps us understand the lore better. It does too. And honestly, it's good general information too, just to know that too. Like, you know, like it's nothing wrong with just picking up shit like this too. Like, it wouldn't hurt, you know, to learn this shit. Even if this part here is not real, you still get something from this video. So it's like, you know, it's a W either way, you know.
Given its ability to withstand the radiation, but also deal with the heat associated. So back to the movie. Seeing as the hit did nothing, it then stands up to attack, which is odd as it's quite literally swimming and cannot touch the bottom of the ocean. How is it standing like that? Anyways, don't think too much about it as it finally gets hit by another ship that comes in. Hitting it several more times, well, it can still heal, so it does nothing. It then begins swimming after the larger boat before completely tearing it apart as one of the shots is able to hit it in the thoracic region as it falls into the water, stunning it momentarily, as it then begins to light up, and then the boat is thermonuclearly detonated. Godzilla emerges once more grumpy from being injured as he Naruto swims out of there. Shikishima at this point passes back out, which you see moves the plot forward. Him going unconscious, that is. Waking up in hospital, his crewmates are all there, which is a little surprising. Nobody has just anything else to do. Shikishima then tells them what that thing is, as he's informed the whereabouts of it are actually unknown. He says they need to evacuate Tokyo right now, which I mean, you don't necessarily know he's heading there. You know what they say about assuming. Meanwhile, back at his shack with the new addition, the not-girlfriend asks him what happened. Shikishima will tell her as they really start flirting with relationship territories. Bro, just do it already, good lord. So finally, Shikishima tells his not-girlfriend about his kamikaze days and how he pretended his plane was faulty so that he could live. He didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, I can't blame him for that. And if you get angry at me because I'm not pro-kamikaze, I don't know what to tell you, sweet cheeks. So he says that like he called it Godzilla and then the other day it's reappeared, and this is now the second time he couldn't do anything about it, which is not true. He could have totally, absolutely fired the 20mm cannons, but he just chose not to. Anyways, he talks about his PTSD for a while as he's worried that he actually died.
Trying to add some stuff to the OBS.
So after that night of fun, the not girlfriend is cooking breakfast in the morning as he looks at his not family. He then looks over at his not alive parents. You see, Shin Godzilla had a bunch of meetings. This movie has a bunch of hanging out and weird interactions, I guess. So back on the next boat, that's totally not going to get wrecked at all, Godzilla is straight up already under it. Godzilla then emerges, presumably destroying it. Another boat then looks out as they patrol Tokyo Bay as I see Godzilla heading towards the mines. They blow the mines, which do absolutely nothing to them, of course. Like a mine line predictably would do nothing. Like, why is it just a line? Maybe like several would have been preferable. So as Shikishima then plays with his not-offspring, a radio broadcast goes out as Godzilla is heading towards Ginza, where his not-girlfriend works. Surely this will have a negative impact on the economy. Godzilla then starts throwing stuff around like a not Chad as he picks up a bus and he throws it back down as he wades through the buildings towards the center of town. While that's going on, helpless people on subway trains scream bug-eyed as he looks in on them. You see, it's the folly of man. Anyways, so as Godzilla has been straight up bulking, it's a pretty big lizard at this point. So
this CGI looks really good, bro. Like, yeah, this is for sure 2023. This is mad recent. This looks really good. Look at this, yo.
trains,
This was really
scream
good.
bug-eyed as he
Right, this
looks
looks
in on
really
them.
good,
You
bro.
see, it's the folly of man. Anyway,
That looks fine.
so as Godzilla has been straight
fine.
up bulking, it's a pretty big
That's
lizard
fine.
at this point.
It's hard,
So let's
bro.
discuss that for a moment because good lord. Initially, Zilla, as mentioned, was around 49 feet tall, or in the archaic measurement scale that needs to be done away with, 15 meters. Godzilla, after his radiation exposure, is said, the Europeans are seething now, is said to be about 164 feet tall, or around 50
It was worth every 25 doll hairs. Yo, doll hairs is nuts, yo.
0.1 meters. Canonically, they added that 0.1 so that he would be taller than the original Godzilla. That had to be an actual reason that they did this. Like, oh, this one's actually taller. But all that growth, given it's only been about 2 years since he was last sighted, would indicate that he grew roughly an extra 115 feet in that time frame, which means he's probably about 3 times the size that he was, and with that, the weight gained in this bulk of deep sea fish and the occasional ship, just from the casual glance, given like the height and in general added muscle mass, would put him roughly about 4 to 5 times his original weight. Now this would be horrifying, but there is one major issue, as is always with any giant lizard or giant monkey, the square cube law. Much like Clovey from Cloverfield, physics is undefeated in the parking lot, even more so when it comes to biomechanics and the constraints from the environment it resides in. Currently, the largest land animal that can exist on Earth at all is the African bush elephant. Animals within the ocean can get much larger as the water supports their bodies, but land is way different. This is because the strength of bones and muscle is going to have its limitations. For every muscle cell to engage in contractions, it must work with other muscle cells to move a frame. As an animal gets larger and larger, this muscle must work harder for it to even just contract its own strands until eventually, as the animal grows, it can no longer contract the muscle because the muscle could not produce enough force to move itself effectively. Along with this, Godzilla's bones in no way, shape, or form could actually support the size that he is. Now remember, the longer the bone, the weaker the bone. Short kings rise up. What I find interesting is, it may be entirely possible given his size, since his pre-mutated form, that he may have been able to exist. Again, I'm mentioning the dinosaurs here, but they had hollow bones, which is why they were able to get as big as they did. But what you may find kind of more surprising is that maybe there's a possibility, and I mean take that with a grain of salt. A lot of this movie is speculation, especially for me. So maybe he could exist due to an interesting interaction bones have with nuclear byproducts. Strontium is technically a nuisance for our bones. It actively replaces calcium, and specifically pertaining to strontium-90, this could lead to cancers in the bone, bone marrow, and soft tissues around the bones. With that said though, strontium ranelate can actually help make bones stronger and reduce the risk of broken bones. As it's incorporated into the bones, it hardens them beyond what calcium does, potentially increasing the strength. We know in facilities like Chernobyl, for instance, nuclear waste released strontium-90. For Godzilla to exist in any capacity and violate the square cubed law, his bones would have needed to be stronger, and this may also be where the nuclear radiation he possesses comes from. Radiation is stored in the bones. As he was exposed to the nukes at the Bikini Atoll, it is clear he lived around that area, and brother, were we contaminating it with nuclear radiation amongst other isotopes and radioactive materials. What I believe happened is as these nukes were tested, Godzilla became more and more exposed to the radiation. His bones became saturated with radioactive strontium, but rather than cause cancer, it seems mutations seemed more beneficial. This would help to explain why his entire posture changed, and rather than walking like a dinosaur, he appears to have gone truly bipedal and stood upright. The bones themselves became not only the continuous source of radiation, altering his soft tissue as a result, but specifically the proto-oncogenes. But mutations also in the bone structures allowed for his physical morphology to change. As the radiation built up more and more in his home and he absorbed it, this would ultimately culminate into the heat ray as well. We see the spines along his back will extend as light can be seen emitting. Now obviously this is purely speculative, as life as we know it could not survive exposures to this amount of radiation or contain this amount of radiation in his body, but it seems the vertebral column, given the amount of bone and spinal fluid collected in the area, produces the heat ray through a collection of radiation in its body. But how? Alright, prepare yourself. We are getting out there. I'm giving you a fair warning. It seems that these spines moving upwards may in fact damage the spine in some capacity as it moves up the back. Doing so, we know that rapid healing is sort of Godzilla's thing. As the damages increase, so does the healing. It may be that this somehow focuses the radiation already within the body through new cellular growth and irradiated bones, which is then focused outwards. This would almost seem to indicate that possibly spinal fluid is being ejected out of the mouth once the spines descend back down through the muscular contractions. And I think there is evidence to support this towards the end of the movie as well. And I know it's an out there hypothesis, but just bear with me. So grabbing the subway subway train, somehow not girlfriend manages to survive by becoming the next American Ninja Warrior with that freaking grip strength, as then she falls into the water below. The press is here. Oh, thank God. He then, for some reason, just completely ignores them, but then clips the building, I think on purpose, ending their broadcast. Not girlfriend then decides to just kind of slowly walk through, having survived, and doesn't get trampled, as then she's grabbed by Shikishima. Like, really, what are the odds of that? You ran into your not girlfriend out of all these people running in this chaos. Then some tanks show up to take some pot shots, which predictably do nothing as his tail starts charging. In an ancient meme, he's a fire in his laser, which basically nukes everything for the third time, as Shikishima is now saved by his not girlfriend, achieving single father status in one fell swoop.
Damn, so she sacrificed herself in U event. See, I'm not an advocate of like always gotta hit it, but like, damn, she did all that U event. Get buns, dude? That's tough. Don't you got a kid in your hands too? Oh, that's tough.
And being promoted to one of my elite employees of primary parent. So he now has a nice cry about it while Ginza is completely destroyed. Shikishima then has also a scream as Ash begins to fall down. But we are about to see something rather important in a moment. Having a eulogy for his not girlfriend, Shikishima sits there depressed. The not daughter then asks where her mother is, and having nothing sugarcoated so far in this movie because life is difficult and nobody makes it out alive, the daughter then starts crying. Also, I don't know if they dubbed this, but it sounded like an infant crying at first. It was really annoying. Looking through the pictures, I mean, you could have at least pulled her into the alley when she pushed you. I don't know. So he laughs as Fisherman Einstein comes to him to tell him there is a method to take out Godzilla. He asks if Shikishima wants to be a part of it and get some revenge. So heading over to another meeting, I'm having Shin Godzilla flashbacks. They have congregated to discuss what they should do about the Godzilla threat. They aren't sure really what can be done, as they don't have any fighting capability of their own, and if the US helps, this is just going to aggravate the US-Soviet relations. I don't know. I do kind of feel like if you're fighting a giant radioactive lizard, a joint operation could have been launched, and then we could go back to hating one another.
Yeah, it's like, bro, if he can destroy the whole world, why are we even still talking about, I don't care if we're opposites. I don't care if we're supposed to be opposition, dude. We'll both die. It's not gonna matter if we don't stop this nigga right here. But you still want to hit, I don't, you know what I mean? It's
just a human class,
obvious
hate each other until there's something bigger to fight. Fisherman Einstein then tells them that the lizard is called Godzilla. It wasn't important at all. The Odo people actually live with this thing by not blowing it up. Imagine that. So maybe if they don't blow it up, it would work. But we don't do that around here, partner. Fisherman Einstein then goes into his plan. Use bubbles to sink it to the ocean floor where it hunts and can swim back up, which is an interesting plan there, but he suspects maybe the pressure will crush it. The captain then asks, shouldn't it just be able to withstand that pressure? The change of pressure, he kind of supports the idea. It's like, no, because it happens so fast, it'll crush it. But then he says, I can only predict what will happen. I cannot know for certain. Everybody's putting him through the ringer, but it's like, at least he has a plan. Shikishima then gets up to leave, but for some reason, everybody thinks he's important. Just let him leave. Find a new protagonist. I promise you, he's not that important to the plan. Proceeding with the meeting, after he shows us some drawings, everyone gets up to look out the window as they show them how they will put the balloon on him when he hits the bottom, and then the second change will blow him up. As the guy in charge talks about everyone stepping up, in the middle there's an extra actually wearing a hoodie with a hat on. He looks like he's from 2024. You can literally see the drawstrings of the hoodie. What is that? So Team Lead gives us an inspirational speech about, if you want to go, I can't stop you. As Fisherman Einstein says, the plan doesn't mean certain death, so it's better than wartime. Later on, the team discusses the plan while Shikishima sits there trying to be the main character who's edgy AF. Fisherman Einstein suggests this thing is probably upwards of 20,000 tons, as Shikishima says if they can get a hold of a fighter plane to draw it in, then he can pilot it. Shikishima says that he'll take the risk, heat ray be damned. Who's going to raise your not daughter, bro? So the captain then snatches him up as he accuses him of not marrying his not girlfriend, and he says the war isn't over yet. PTSD. Removing his headband, finally, they find a decommissioned plane that was evidently rather nimble. They basically built a plane backwards, so they're going to need a mechanic to fix this. So he calls upon the Odo mechanic. The one who had his whole team die because Shikishima wouldn't take the shot. I'm sure he's just jonesing to help. There are truly no other mechanics in the area. Is this serious? So looking for information, he then heads off to the records office, but runs into issues, obviously, because, bureaucracy. And again, why they can't find another mechanic is beyond me. Later that night, the mechanic then finds Shikishima. Well, that was pretty easy. But then he gets knocked out by him and tied up. Getting punched a few times, he says that this attack in Ginza and the one on Odo Island are caused by the same thing and he needs help fixing a plane, getting the whole team back together. So groveling like a huge nerd, the mechanic agrees to help, as Shikishima says he's gonna fly the entire plane of concussive force detonators into Godzilla's mouth. This man just wants out of fatherhood that badly. So the next day, the mechanic arrives to work on the plane. Getting the crew together on a big boat a few days later, we get a montage of loading the boats, and everyone is super jazzed to just be doing something. Drawing a straight line to Tokyo, they think Godzilla is going to head in that way. Einstein Fisherman then tells everyone to go home and spend time with their family in preparation for tomorrow. So that night, he picks up his not daughter from the neighbor as he thanks her for everything and then goes back to his house. His not daughter then drew a picture of him and her not mom and her not dad together, which is truly magical. The offspring then starts crying like a newborn again, which just doesn't sound right, like, ugh. So the not father the next morning leaves a letter. They're like, is he gonna inform his neighbor that the youngling's just there and he's likely not coming back? No, he's not. Heading back to the plane, Shikishima then asks if it's ready. Interrupting break time, they look upset, but they show him that it is armed with what he ordered. Shikishima realizes part of him wants to live, as he's told everyone on the beach wanted to live too. Excellent guilt trip. Looking at the drawing, he says he will stop Godzilla for her future. Back at the house, the neighbor then finds her second.
I'm sorry, this drawing ought to blast him. Man, what the fuck? God bless him, yo, man. What am I fighting for? Let me stop. That's fucked up.
He says he will stop Godzilla for her future. Back at the house, the neighbor then finds her second removed not daughter by herself as she's brought a packet of money to the neighbor. So the neighbor is just now in charge of this offspring. Man, this youngling gets dumped a lot. Out at the boats, the deep sea fish have begun coming up as the boats move into position. The underwater decoy team is now destroyed as Godzilla enters Sagami Bay. While that's happening, Shikishima puts his not girlfriend's picture on his plane and then goes to take off and head towards Sagami Bay as well. Godzilla begins making his way towards Tokyo once more, and I have to wonder how many times can this story be told? Fisherman Einstein says Shikishima will have to lure it somehow back out to the trench. Getting a radio call, the captain says he will not forgive him if he orphans his not daughter. Heading towards Godzilla in his backwards plane, the neighbor then gets a call from a guy with a telegram. Shikishima approaches Godzilla, taking some pot shots as Godzilla begins his 3-mile-per-hour walk back to the bay. He should be there by next week. They then get the Freon cylinders ready as it pursues him out into the bay once more towards the boats. Charging up his tail immediately, Godzilla fires a shot at the boats, detonating it as the main boat survives the blast. Fisherman Einstein then says the heat ray takes time to recharge, so this is their time to attack. You may not have seen it, but this is why I also believe it's creating internal damage. As the heat ray comes out of his face, it actually damages him, creating that downtime before he can fire again. And that means not only is this incredibly painful to do, but it actually destroys cells on the way out, necessitating that a healing ability needs to be working at maximum capacity. But how does this explain the potential projection of spinal fluid? Well, we'll get there momentarily.
He just deteriorates as he's pouring out a large output of power? Is that right?
Releasing the cargo of vending machines, they begin
a specific type of power.
Heading to the sides of Godzilla to trap him while Shikishima distracts him with the plane. The ships pass each other as they skim. I'm not really sure why they did this. They could have just aimed and then they damaged each other, but the lines have surrounded.
That's right? Okay, makes sense. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, but I mean, you got to nerf him somehow, right? You know.
Godzilla. Charging up his tail again, they blow the charges, sending Godzilla to the deep below. Again, also, how is Godzilla standing up like that? That part never made sense to me. Being that stable in water, swimming, it just seems impossible. Dropping him to the bottom of the trench as his spines are pushed back into him due to the pressure, that would be also incredibly painful. So, after almost being ocean gated, they blow the CO2 charges, rapidly bringing him back up to the surface as his skin starts showing some issues are beginning to happen. He does, however, stop at 803 meters as he's chewed through the bags. So they put their boats on full power and try to drag him up manually. Another boat then arrives to help, as it's the kid who never served earlier. For some reason, they wouldn't let him join in the reindeer games. It's actually a lot of boats that are pulled together in case this very specific scenario happened. Otherwise, you guys were just going out there to totally get got. Attaching the lines to the tugboats, they then start dragging Godzilla back to the surface. As he emerges, that's gotta be mega painful. His tail then charges up again as he goes to blast everyone, and here comes Shikishima. Pretty sure Godzilla would have already blasted everyone, but remembering his not girlfriend, he then crashes into Godzilla and detonates the concussive force detonators, except it was a fake out as he ejected, as the mechanic now realizes he needs to kill Shikishima. Also, just kidding about that. There was an ejection seat on purpose. The mechanic then tells him to live right on the heels of that massive guilt trip from earlier that he put him through. Very interesting concept. I guess he just had to get in that jab first. Meanwhile, Godzilla ain't looking so hot. Because his body did not eject the spinal fluid laden with nuclear radiation, he then falls apart in the water, completely destroyed. Returning back home, everyone is super jazzed as they have all survived. Shikishima's seen wearing a blanket for some reason, as in they all celebrate. His neighbor then drops off his not daughter, as evidently his not girlfriend also survived. 100% third-degree burns, though. Well, maybe not. She survived, and she asks if his war is finally over, and he cries, ensuring that she's gonna totally get the ick. You fell for the classic blunder. Meanwhile, Godzilla's head, or something, floats to the bottom as it begins reforming, indicating Godzilla -1 Part 2 is just in the horizon. Or maybe it's just Godzilla 0. I don't know. Now, you may have not noticed this, and I know I didn't the first time around, but if you look at the not girlfriend's neck, you may see something rather interesting. A black patch of coloring has begun growing. At first, I had just assumed it was ash and they forgot to just clean her up, but that is not the case. This is an infection. Pretty crazy, right? It is confirmed that she's actually infected with Godzilla cells, or G cells as they are called. So
just because she got hit with the blast? Many people must be affected by this too, or they gotta go into a further explanation. I ain't gonna lie. You need to watch this 50 seconds? Should I watch it now or when this is done?
So moving back to when the blast hit Ginza, they say everything was contaminated with radiation, but there was actually material left over of unknown origin. This material is Godzilla's spinal fluid, in my opinion, which also possesses a cancerous-like ability, and for that, we need to understand cancer cells for a moment. Multicellular organisms have quite literally put all their eggs in the teamwork basket. If you take a human cell by itself, it cannot exist even in an environment rich with resources because it needs direction from other cells on how to survive and behave. Without this, it will expire. And this is why we cannot just grow organs, unfortunately. However, upon a cell switching over to become cancerous, it actually can survive by itself. Look no further than the woman named Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks went to the doctor back in 1951, where it was discovered she had a malignant tumor on her cervix. Cells were taken, and then they are still grown to this day, which we use to test medical advancements. They are known as HeLa cells, but what it shows is while normal multicellular organisms, or like their cells, will not survive outside of the host, cancer cells can. When Godzilla ejects this hypothesized hyperfocused radioactive spinal fluid, I would not say the entire beam is spinal fluid, but the compression creates a runaway reaction that causes his nuclear ability, sort of like how compression at the core of a star can create nuclear fusion, to basically start happening. Upon the beam being projected outwards, invariably some of the spinal
This one minus one of my favorite. I see why. You know, game. I see why.
fluid would come out. This material contaminates the area, and some may even be blasted up into the sky. Those that were exposed and survived, dealing with the ash and rain that falls containing radiation and Godzilla material, would be infected by these cancerous cells that are able to survive outside of Godzilla's body. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, first, I believe Shikishima, his not girlfriend, and anyone who survived are infected. And this could have long-standing consequences, leading to either a takeover of their body or hybridization, but currently it is unknown specifically what will happen. Again, we're just gonna have to wait for part 2 on that. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, leaving a like would be greatly appreciated. And subscribing is a great way to stay up to date on when I post. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, and Roanoke Tales channel link. But speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. First, I'd like to thank our astrophysicist, Death Dancer, and Feather. Thank you very much for your support, guys. Next, I'd like to thank our scientists, Argent Sentinel, Dakota 23, Lucian Dragon, Metric System, and Trash Panda in a trench coat. Thank you guys as well.
You have a theory? What's your theory? Let me get to that video too, though. What's your theory? What you thinking of? So yeah, apparently she's not the only one that has everybody that survived that the cancerous cells lead to one lucky person to become Shin Godzilla like Venom. I mean, yeah, they gotta go to specifics though if they want to make that like, you know, a storyline or like the climax of the story, you know what I mean? But I do see where that's going, because that could be a thing. That would make total sense, because, you know, it just wouldn't make sense for everybody to become freaking Godzilla, or, you know what I'm saying? That wouldn't make no sense. It got to be mixed with something, bro. It got to be something specific, but I can see that happening. I can for sure see that happening, for sure. aesthetically pleasing. Like, this is actually pleasing. That's my theory, because cancer cells continue to grow, right? Shin Godzilla is constantly mutating. That's my opinion. Now, it makes sense, though. Yeah, it's constantly evolving, you know. It makes sense, yeah. I get that. That honestly could be the next plot. They could do that. They're probably working on that right now. Who knows? Who knows? Jeez. Yo. Nah, they did their thing on this one. This is 2023. This look mad good. You saw Insta was, bro. Yes, bro. That's crazy. Yo. Anyways, no time, bro. No type of delay. It's the fact that y'all standing right there. Like, bro, what? No build up. No, seriously, no. Seriously, no. Not at all. Boom. It was like, yeah, it's a chart of course, but like as soon as he squeezed in, boom, boom. Yeah, sneeze. Sneeze is the perfect way to put it. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. I ain't gonna lie, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. Hey, look, y'all about to turn me to a freaking Godzilla stand, man. Now, I ain't gonna lie, he might be up there with me. I ain't gonna lie, you just put me on game, because he looks tough. And he actually has that build I actually like. Pause. He does have the freaking T-Rex build. He can actually do stuff with his arms. He actually looks pretty menacing, bro. And it's not just like a size equals strength type of thing. He's actually pretty good. You don't have to be freaking big to be strong. That's probably why I like Kong so much, because like you don't have to be freaking big to be strong. You know, you can show your strength through other ways. We're going to stream right here, man. I love you. Love all y'all. I'll see y'all niggas next week. It's probably only just here and here, but I love y'all niggas. I love y'all. 400, bro. 400 subs. We got 100 more to go by the next, I want to say by the next month or so. I'm not going to put a date on it, but I'm going to try to push as much as I can out. Hopefully we can see it by the end of like the next 2 months or something. We'll see. I want to make it happen, bro. Shout out God.